The ping from my phone came just as I was closing a client deal. I shouldn't have checked it, but curiosity has its own gravity. Instagram. Anderson family posted a photo. I opened it. My mother in a red scarf. My sister posing with a macaron. My father raising a glass of champagne against the glittering Eiffel Tower. The caption read, "Our perfect family trip. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below." We read every comment. Let's begin. My chest tightened. Our perfect family trip. Funny. I didn't remember booking a ticket. For a long moment, I just stared at their smiles, their effortless joy, the Paris skyline glowing behind them. Then something inside me went still. Cold. Precise. So this was how they celebrated after telling me, maybe it's better if you skip family trips for a while. You're always busy anyway. Busy working 3 jobs. Busy paying off their loans. Busy being their disappointment. I looked closer. The hotel behind them. That balcony with gold railings and the red awning. Hotel Montrose. I'd stayed there years ago, back when I was just an intern desperate to prove myself. I still remembered the concierge's name. I took a slow sip of coffee, pulled my laptop closer, and opened my company's current project list. The Montrose was right there, recently acquired by one of our European partners. I smiled for the first time that day. Not the polite kind. The kind that carried a promise. I picked up my phone and called my assistant. "Harper," I said, steady and calm. "Reschedule my New York meetings. I'm flying to Paris." There was a pause on the other end. "Paris? For vacation?" "No," I said, shutting my laptop. "For business." And maybe, I thought as I packed my bag that night, for something even better, justice. Because if my family wanted to post a picture-perfect version of themselves to the world, I'd be the one standing behind the camera this time, holding the truth. Paris greeted me with its usual contradiction, soft light and sharp truth. The kind of city that could make heartbreak look cinematic. My cab rolled past flower stalls and street cafes, yet all I could think about was that photo caption, "Our perfect family trip." When I stepped into the marble lobby of Hotel Montrose, the scent of polished wood and espresso hit me. The bellman smiled. "Welcome back, mademoiselle." I nodded slightly. "Thank you. I have a meeting scheduled with Mr. Laurent. Pierre Laurent, the building's new owner and the reason I was here. Our firm had partnered with him on several property conversions. He didn't know the personal layer of this visit, only that I was here for tenant restructuring. He stood when I entered his office, tall, mid-40s, expensive suit, and a handshake that meant business. "Miss Anderson, pleasure to finally meet you in person. Your reports have impressed my team." "Glad to hear it," I said, keeping my tone professional even as adrenaline pulsed through me. Pierre gestured toward the file on his desk. "You mentioned you wanted to review one of our active bookings personally?" I nodded. "Suite 402, the Anderson family." His brow lifted slightly. "Your family?" "Formerly," I replied, meeting his gaze. "But that's not relevant to the business matter." Pierre hesitated, then opened the file. "They've been vocal guests. Several complaints from the staff. Late room payments. I was considering speaking to them myself." "Let me handle it," I said. "They'll respond better to someone who knows their tendencies." He studied me for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You Americans are interesting. So composed, yet I sense emotion under the surface." "You'd be surprised what a lifetime of silence teaches you," I murmured. Pierre closed the file. "Very well. I trust your discretion. The suite is yours to visit." As I walked out, my reflection in the gold-framed mirror didn't look like the same woman who'd been excluded from a family trip. My posture was sharper now. My silence had edges. Outside the elevator, I stopped to collect myself. I wasn't here for shouting or tears. I'd cried enough for them. I was here to remind them who they'd underestimated. When the elevator opened on the 4th floor, I could hear laughter echoing down the corridor. Their laughter. My mother's voice first, light, almost musical, like She hadn't aged a day since our last argument. Lily, take another photo by the balcony. This view is perfect. Then my father's booming chuckle. You always need another photo, don't you? And my sister's mock complaint. You're the one who said we need more for the family blog. I stepped forward, heels clicking softly against the marble floor until I reached their door. Room 402. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady as I knocked twice. Coming, Lily's voice sang out. The door swung open, and her face dropped like the air had been sucked out of the hallway. Claire? I smiled slightly.
Hi, sis.
Behind her, my mother froze mid-laugh. My father set his glass down, eyes narrowing in disbelief. What are you doing here? He asked, his tone sharp. I'm here to discuss your lease, I said calmly. I'm with the new management overseeing this property. My mother blinked rapidly. Lease? That must be some mistake. No mistake, I said, stepping inside and placing the folder on the coffee table. You're currently staying in a suite managed by Lauron Properties, a company I consult for. Lily crossed her arms. So, you just happened to show up here? What, to ruin our vacation? I turned to her.
No.
I came to finalize an acquisition. The same acquisition that includes this hotel. Their silence was immediate, heavy. My father finally spoke, his jaw tight. You expect us to believe this? You've always been dramatic, Claire. I met his gaze evenly. And you've always underestimated me. For the first time, my mother seemed unsure. Her voice softened. Claire, we didn't mean to hurt you. It was a family trip, and things just got too crowded? I interrupted. Too perfect without me? The room went still again. The kind of stillness that exposed truth like light through glass. I flipped open the folder. Here's the issue. You've exceeded your payment window. And since this is now under Lawrence management and my oversight, you'll need to either settle the balance or vacate by morning. My father's face turned red. You can't do this. We've been coming here for years. And I've been ignored for years, I said softly. So yes, I can. Lily scoffed.
Wow.
You flew all the way here just to kick us out? How bitter can you be? Bitter? I repeated, stepping closer.
No.
Just done playing the family embarrassment while you pose for perfect pictures. My mother whispered, Claire, please. I cut her off. Don't. You told me once that family doesn't owe you anything. Remember? You said love isn't a debt to be collected. You were right. But respect? That's earned. And you lost mine the day you erased me from your lives. She looked like she might cry, but I didn't flinch this time. Not for guilt. Not for pity. I turned toward the door. The front desk will expect your decision by noon tomorrow. Either settle up or move out. Then I paused, glancing back with a faint, cold smile. Oh, and don't forget to tag me in your next family photo. Wouldn't want the world to miss this chapter. When I stepped back into the hallway, my hands trembled, but not from fear. From release. Paris looked different that night when I walked back outside. Colder, sharper, more honest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the forgotten daughter. I felt like the one holding the pen. And the next caption I decided would be mine. That night, I couldn't sleep. The lights of Paris shimmered through my hotel window like 1,000 tiny truths refusing to stay hidden. My phone buzzed every few minutes, missed calls, messages from Lily, even one from my mother. Claire, can we please talk? This isn't who you are. I almost laughed at that. Isn't who I am? No, this was exactly who I became because of them. I poured myself a glass of water, then looked out the window at the Eiffel Tower glowing gold in the distance. I'd spent years chasing their approval. Every degree, every late night, every success was a desperate attempt to be seen. But that photo, that caption, our perfect family trip, had done something irreversible. It had cut the last thread tying me to their validation. The next morning, I returned to the Montrose. The same marble lobby, same soft piano music, but this time, every step I took felt deliberate. The receptionist greeted me with a polite smile. Bonjour, Mademoiselle Anderson. Suite 402 checked out early this morning. I froze. They left. Yes, she said. Paid the remaining balance in cash. Left this envelope for you. The envelope was thin, addressed in my mother's handwriting. My chest tightened as I opened it. Inside were a few folded bills, euros, neatly stacked, and a note. For what we owe. And maybe for what we didn't give you. I stared at it for a long time before slipping it into my bag. They hadn't stayed to face me.
Typical.
When things got uncomfortable, they ran. They always did. But something in me didn't want to let it end like that. I needed closure. Not the cinematic kind, the quiet, human kind that comes when truth finally gets to speak louder than pain. So I asked the receptionist, "Do you know where they went?" She hesitated, then said softly, "They mentioned dinner at Le Montclair this evening. It's a few blocks away." By evening, I found myself outside the restaurant, a glass-walled rooftop overlooking Paris. The Andersons sat near the window, smiling like nothing had happened. My father was mid-laugh, my mother pouring wine, Lily scrolling through her phone. I stood at the entrance for a moment, letting the scene burn into memory, my perfect family, still performing for the world. Then I walked in. The hostess blinked. "Bonsoir, mademoiselle." "It's fine," I said quietly. "I see my table." Their heads turned almost in sync when they saw me. My mother's hand froze midair, the bottle of wine trembling slightly. My father's expression shifted from surprise to that same old annoyance. "Claire," he said, his tone tight. "This isn't the time." I pulled out a chair and sat down. "It never was, right?" Lily groaned. "Can we not do this in public?" "Oh, we can," I said calmly. "You posted your public version already. Consider this my comment section." My mother's eyes welled up. "Honey, please." "Don't," I interrupted softly. "Not honey. You don't get to use that word after pretending I didn't exist." She lowered her gaze, and for the first time, she didn't have a perfect excuse. I leaned back. "You know what the funny part is? You erased me to look picture perfect and still couldn't pay your hotel bill on time." My father slammed his napkin down. "That's enough. You come here acting superior, trying to humiliate your own family." I met his glare without flinching. "You did that all on your own. I'm just the mirror." He started to speak again, but I cut him off. "You know, I used to believe every insult you threw at me was somehow true, that I was selfish, too focused on work, too cold. But turns out, I was just surviving a family that couldn't stand watching me succeed without their permission." Lily crossed her arms, muttering, "You're overreacting." I looked at her. "You're right. Flying to Paris was overreacting. But maybe that's what it takes to show people what they've built, a facade." The waiter approached awkwardly, unsure if he should interrupt. My father waved him off. I took a deep breath. "You know what I came here for? Not revenge. Not money. Just truth." My mother whispered, "We love you, Claire." I smiled faintly. Love isn't what you post when it's convenient. Love is showing up, and you never did. She started crying quietly, her hand trembling around her glass. For a brief second, I saw the woman who once kissed my scraped knees and told me I could do anything. Then I remembered how easily she'd looked the other way when my father called me a failure for choosing independence. I stood up slowly. "You'll all go home and tell people I was dramatic, that I've changed. But deep down, you'll know I just stopped begging." No one spoke. Even Lily's sarcastic edge was gone. I leaned in slightly and said the last thing I'd been holding back for years. "I'm not angry anymore. Just free." Then I turned and walked toward the exit. The sound of silverware clinking faded behind me. Outside, the air felt lighter. Not because the city changed, but because I finally had. On my way back to the hotel, I passed a bookstore window displaying a quote. "Sometimes closure means walking away with your head high, not with their apology." For the first time in years, I smiled without bitterness. Paris had always been the city of love. But that night, it became the city where I learned self-respect was the greatest love of all. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the curtains like quiet validation. I hadn't slept much, but for once, The exhaustion didn't feel heavy. It felt clean. My phone buzzed again, but this time I didn't flinch. A message from Lily. I don't know what to say, but maybe. I get it now. I stared at it for a moment, then put the phone down. No reply. Not yet. Some bridges didn't need burning or rebuilding, just leaving behind. I walked to the balcony, coffee in hand, overlooking the city that had once seemed impossibly large. Now it felt small, or maybe I'd just grown. Below, the streets pulsed with life. Horns, laughter, vendors setting up stalls. Ordinary people doing ordinary things, while I stood here in the calm aftermath of something extraordinary. Peace. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the burden, or the one who doesn't fit in. I was the woman who'd built something from nothing, and then faced the very people who tried to erase her. I checked my email. A new message from Pierre Laurent. Your meeting with the board was a success. They've approved your proposal for partnership. Congratulations, Claire. I smiled faintly. Maybe that was what this trip was really about, not revenge, but reclaiming the version of myself I'd been taught to doubt. Later that afternoon, I went for a walk along the Seine. The water glittered under the pale October sun, and street musicians played songs I couldn't translate, but somehow understood. A woman nearby took a family photo, laughing as her little boy made a silly face. I caught myself smiling at the scene, not with envy this time, but gratitude. It hit me then. Family isn't always blood. It's who shows up when no one else does. It's the people who see your worth without a filter, without a caption. I pulled out my phone and finally posted something of my own, the Eiffel Tower behind me, the city glowing gold. The caption read, "Sometimes the trip you take alone is the one that brings you home." Within minutes, comments rolled in from colleagues, friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Proud of you, Claire. You deserve peace. This is powerful. But I didn't post it for them. I posted it for the girl who once begged for a seat at her own family's table. That evening, just before leaving Paris, I stopped by the Montrose lobby one last time. The same receptionist from before smiled. Did your family enjoy their stay, mademoiselle? I laughed softly. Let's just say they checked out early. She tilted her head. And you? I'm staying exactly as long as I need to, I said, handing her the keycard. Then I'm going home. She nodded with a kind smile. Bon voyage. As I stepped outside, the city lights came alive again, golden, warm, almost forgiving. I took one last look at the skyline and whispered, thank you. Not to Paris. Not to them. To myself. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need a family photo to prove I belonged anywhere. I was my own proof. And somewhere back in that perfect family album, under that perfect caption, I hoped they finally saw what they'd lost, not out of spite, but clarity. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction. It's evolution. And Paris had witnessed mine.